episode 4 of the Behind Track Limits podcast. Today, we're talking about the Portimao Grand Prix. So, yeah.
I can never go.
The protocols were again
started then. What's
Right.
everyone's thoughts? Ellie, you can start.
Wasn't the best one, to be honest. It was an okay race. The start was quite, with the safety car and stuff, I thought it was quite entertaining. Loved Carlos getting up into like overtake. I think he overtook Checo, and I was like, Carlos. But then after that, I got a bit bored. But
Didn't you fall asleep, Ellie? Didn't you fall asleep?
I had a nap. I ended up falling asleep till the end.
Oh my god.
Lottie?
It's a bit, it was a bit underwhelming. I like, same with Ellie, when the safety car come out at the start, I was like, okay, it could be quite entertaining, and then it was just a proper letdown. I was quite halfway through it, found myself scrolling through Twitter thinking I should probably be watching this, but I'm just not, because there's not a lot going on. Like, there was the here and there like overtake, but it wasn't. It was quite underwhelming, a bit like last year really. I thought last year was quite underwhelming as well.
I'll just say my thoughts real quick. So my thoughts, I did think it was quite boring, to be fair. Like, I was proper buzzing, like I thought it was gonna be like a good race. I was gonna get home from work, was gonna, watch this like proper action packed race. No. It just didn't happen, did it? I mean, I think the most entertaining part was when Lewis was waiting for blue flags to past Checo, even though Checo was leading the race. That was like the most entertaining part.
Bono was like, no, Lewis, you're racing him. He was like, oh, okay, like,
and then just overtook him anyway. It's like he didn't even open his DRS or anything because he didn't think he was racing him.
He was that confident. Just let me do this.
Amelia?
Oh my god.
Same as everyone else. It wasn't the best race, but then again, if you're really comparing it to Imola and Bahrain, if we hadn't had those Grand Prix, then this Grand Prix could have been interesting to us. But there wasn't a lot of battles out on track. There was some good overtakes, especially with the overtake with Lewis and Max. That was good. But it wasn't that interesting. I just found myself going a bit tired halfway through. It just kind of just kept going on.
Mm-hmm.
Mine's pretty much the same as well. Like, it's like Amelia said, comparing it to the most recent two, which were really exciting, it wasn't too bad, but it did, because also it's like 66 laps, but then 6 of them were taken away, well, quite a few by the safety car. So it was sort of like, is anything going to happen? But then it did just keep going on. But at the end, it was quite exciting, like Max getting the fastest lap, but then that getting deleted. So it was like adding a bit to it. But overall.
Gracie?
It was all right. Obviously, I like Lewis, so it was like good. But did anyone else think like Lando didn't put up a fight with Perez when the whole track limits thing happened with Perez? I did think he got team orders to not team orders, but sort of told him to come away and don't fight Perez because he needs to give the place back. But I wasn't too sure. But I
was quite confused. I thought it was fine. I kept looking at a replay of it thinking I don't particularly see like what the issue was with it, and then apparently Perez was like, no, he's all 4 wheels off the track, like why is he overtaking me? So I was like, and then he gave it back, and I was like, I mean, fair play for giving it back, but I don't particularly see where it was wrong. And then I saw like a view later and I was like, that's where it's wrong. Okay, that will make sense now.
Melanie?
I don't even remember watching the race. I think I went on Instagram and Twitter. I remember Kimmy at the start, and then all 60 laps kind of just went past, and I was like, oh. But I'm very happy Lewis won. And my predictions were right for the race, so I was quite happy for that as well. So.
Oh, I said like when Kimi like obviously went into his teammate and that, like I didn't really like see like what happened. I was like, what I said to myself, I was like, oh, what's the chances it was Mazepin?
Just like ultimate blame it on him first. I did not know he went into the back of Giovinazzi. Like I couldn't see what was going on, so I was like, "Oh my god, someone just took Kimi out." But it was sort of his fault, weren't it? He's just sort of like drove into him. I was like, "Oh, I don't really know what Kimi's doing," but
I was surprised that Gio didn't get a puncture from it. Honestly, my dad was sitting here, was like, "I'm surprised he's got no damage from that because he has gone into the back like left, I think it was." So I was like, I'm quite shocked that nothing has happened to Gio because of that.
Definitely.
Yeah, to be fair though, because like front wing damage, like the front wings are quite strong.
This one just completely snapped. This one was gone.
Yeah, that was like under
his car,
under
the wheels.
Literally.
But yeah, another one and like another part of like the race that like I thought was like really wrong was like, what was the point in giving Mazepin a 5-second time penalty when he was being pretty much lapped by everyone on the track?
Like to my dad.
He had a shocking race, and I don't really expect, that sounds bad, I don't really expect any less. But at one point he was a minute and a second behind Mick, and Mick was only one position ahead of him. So I was like, come on, you're gonna want, if you're the team principal of Haas, so if you're going to start, you're gonna want two drivers that can at least compare with each other and can at least challenge each other. Mick is miles ahead of Nikita, probably in race pace, being a minute ahead of him, and also just handling the car, because I think Mick can handle the car better than Nikita can, because he's not spinning as much as Nikita is, and like damage to the car and getting involved in tassels that he shouldn't be. So I think that he's got to look at that and be like, I want a driver that's going to challenge each other and compare and things like that, but he hasn't.
Yeah, well, Mick was like having a battle with Latifi, weren't he? So it shows that Mick is up there. He's going against Nicholas and all that. And it's like when you've got someone that's like so far behind, not pushing the car, and then you've got someone that is pushing the car, you sort of, obviously we're probably not going to get rid of him because he brings in so much money, especially if Gene does end up obviously giving it to his dad. But it's just a bit of a shame how much that car needs developing, but they've just not got a driver in there. Like, to be honest, you need two drivers to be able to develop a car like really well. And when you've only got one, I think it's a little bit more difficult, because I just feel like Nikita isn't going to be able to help him develop that car much, because he's just not on the pace. He's just not there.
It's a bit like a Red Bull situation, isn't it? You're going to want two drivers that compete with each other, and that's, no offense to Alex fans, is not really what Alex had to Max. So it's kind of, I think they made the right choice to go with Checo, because it's like Checo can at least match Max, and we've seen him out-qualify Max at Imola. So they've already kind of had that little tassel of, we know he can match Max. Alex couldn't particularly match Max on race pace or quali pace. So I think that's kind of where Haas have got to look at that kind of situation.
Yeah, I feel like the only way Mazepin will end up out of F1 is if he gets the maximum amount of penalty points on his license. I feel like he's going to pick up quite a few. Especially, I don't know how he got away with like not getting penalty points on his license for ignoring blue flags, but I think he did. If he carries on, no, I think it was only a time penalty. They never said that he got penalty points. That was his only punishment.
Yeah.
So I feel if he carries on the way he is, he'll end up out of F1 with a suspended license.
Well, all I've got to say about that is, ladies and gents, to those, let's all do a petition for Callum Ilott 2022 for the
100%. We need to talk about him in practice, because he actually looked very strong in the Alfa Romeo car.
That's the thing. As much as I love Callum, I wouldn't want him to end up in the Haas, just because the Haas is so slow. I'd rather see him in the Alfa, but the only thing is, obviously, Alfa's an Italian team, so they want an Italian driver like Giovinazzi. And obviously, Kimi is like Kimi, who doesn't love Kimi.
Kimi was there, Kimi started there, so it's kind of...
Yeah. And the thing is, it's not as if he's slow either. Like, it's not as if he doesn't, like, put in the hard work and stuff. But I would prefer to see Callum in an Alpha because I think he would be able to do quite a lot.
Yeah, I feel like with like I am like the same as Ellie. Like I'm glad he didn't get the Haas seat because Haas now are the point where they can make or break drivers. They can either make them look really bad, or they can make them look really good in what they've got. And like you can see that with Nikita Mazepin and Schumacher because Schumacher's performing to the best he can with the car, and Nikita's just like
this.
Like,
Yeah.
Sunday drive.
Two complete different levels of the spectrum entirely.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got a F2 champion from last season and a driver with 6 podiums, I believe. And yeah, you know, podiums are good, but
not enough.
Not when Callum was second in the championship winning. And when you've got people like Nick de Vries that didn't even get into F1 and was like literally dominated that F2 season.
Nick got scammed that he didn't get a seat in F1. He was so strong that season and then got nothing out of it. Like,
let me just go cry in a corner a moment because Nick didn't get into F1.
I'll join you.
But Nicholas talent.
Nicholas
so much talent in F2. Like because there's so much talent in F2 that just goes to waste because they don't have enough money to fund themselves into F1. Like I feel like that's like obviously F1's always been a money sport and it always will be, but like I think there's a point where like you've got to say like money drivers aren't going to do as well as people who have like pushed their car to the limits, won the races, done everything they possibly can to get themselves noticed. Like at the end of the day, you either drive for the Ferrari Academy or the Red Bull Academy and get into F1, or you just don't at all.
Yeah, literally.
Maybe a quick shout for the Alpine Academy as well, though. Christian Lundgaard, Banju, drivers like that. They've got to eventually work their way through, especially because if you look at them actually in F2, they are quite popular drivers. They're not like they're hated drivers and people don't really follow them as such. I think you'd find that Christian Lundgaard's one of the most followed drivers in F2.
Yeah. But the only thing is, he's only got, I think he's only got this year, because I think he said he's only got one more year in F2 and then he can't afford it. And the thing is, when, obviously, as much as like Alonso is doing good in Alpine, I do think sometimes we need the younger ones to get up because it's the new generation. Like, as much as I do, like Alonso is doing good this year, I would like to see like someone like Oscar Piastri or Christian or even Joe. Like Joe is so fast. Like that man has pure talent. Like I think he deserves a job.
Alonso wouldn't move from Alpine yet because he's on a 2-year contract.
Yeah.
So there'd have to be like some big discussions going on for him to leave Alpine because he's on that 2 years. So you'd have to then look at the balance of Ocon. You've got one driver then Ocon, who, if you look at it, has been linked with that 2022 Mercedes kind of thing. Him and George, that's the fight between who's going to get that seat if Lewis does retire or if Bottas doesn't get a seat in Mercedes. So then your only way from the Alpine Academy of getting into that team in F1 is if an empty seat is available, but then all of the Academy drivers have then got to fight for who's the best one, who's going to get that seat.
Yeah. I think it's going to be good to see how Oscar Piastri does this year in F2 because obviously he's come in and I'm pretty sure he won a race, didn't he? I'm pretty sure.
Race.
Yeah, because he's already shown like he's got talent because he only had 1 year in F3.
And he won it.
Yeah, and he won and he then got bumped up to F2. So I think he's a good contender for an F1 seat. It just depends how he does in this F2 season.
Yeah.
I think I have a gut feeling like teams are going to have like F1 teams are going to have a massive clear out just because like changing regulations like how much they're allowed to spend. I feel like Kimi and Antonio Giovinazzi will leave Sauber this year. I think Latifi could go if they can get a bigger sponsorship. George, if he can go to Mercedes next year and replace Bottas or something like that, that leaves a seat open at Williams, and Williams just going higher and higher. Pierre might be leaving Alpha Tauri for Alpine.
That's another thing as well. Alpine,
could replace Ocon.
That
Because
is
there's
true.
Ocon
I
gonna
forgot
really
go
about
strong
for-
that.
links between them two.
Mm,
If George gets a Mercedes seat, where's Ocon gonna go? That's my only.
Yeah.
that's the thing.
I don't think Lewis is gonna leave. I think Bottas will lose his seat.
Yeah, there's
I really don't think
been
Lewis is gonna
there's
leave.
been rumours going around that Lewis wants to stay for another year.
Mm-hmm.
But like at
Yeah.
the end of the day, it's not really up to Lewis, it's up to
Toto will have Lewis all the time though. Like
Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
think Toto would
no
take.
doubt about it.
But I
For
feel
any
like,
team would have Lewis, to
Go
be
on.
honest.
oh
like,
yeah, definitely.
I'm thinking that if Lewis does leave Mercedes, he'll go to McLaren.
Could you imagine?
Where
who
he
will lose
started
their seat,
off-
Lando or Daniel? Because Daniel's
Daniel,
just like
I think it'll be Daniel because I think McLaren
What's his
would want
contract,
Lando for
though?
the long run, like Ferrari do with Charles.
Lando's one of the drivers that's out of contract at the end of the season.
yeah.
Is he?
McLaren will re-sign him if he does well. Like there's no
Yeah.
doubt about it.
There's something like 8 or 9 drivers that are out of contract this year, and Lance is one of them. Lance is out of contract. Lando is, Lewis is. There's quite a few big drivers and some young ones that
Kimmy's out of
prove
contract as
themselves.
well.
Yeah, I
You've
think
got-
Kimmy
Got
is.
old and young drivers that are still looking, young drivers to prove themselves, old drivers wanting to stay in the sport. They're going to have, it's the driver transfers this year, I think, are going to be mad.
Yeah, I think it's
Definitely.
going to be like mind blowing.
Yeah, because last year there were quite a few like ended and
Mhm.
re-signed. So
I think Ferrari will keep the Charles and Carlos because at the moment it's doing quite well. So I think they
Yeah.
might stay. I think Alpine will have a bit of a shuffle around. I think AlphaTauri, but the only thing with AlphaTauri is I don't know who AlphaTauri would have. Like I literally, if Pierre does move to Alpine, I'm not sure who they'd have because my only thing was Yuki. That it was like Yuki
Alex.
was going to move up.
Alex, yeah.
I know, but I
I
don't
don't
know.
think
They
they
bring him
would
through.
because of their Red Bull's sister team. Like they have of the Red Bull junior team, and the juniors coming to AlphaTauri and then Red Bull. So I feel like it'll be someone from the junior team that could come up to replace him.
I'm calling it.
Eurovic,
Have Eurovic.
And Liam Lawson as well.
Yeah,
I think as
they are
well,
rapid.
Like they don't want like older drivers. Like they're very much like a young team. That's the way
Yeah.
it's like been because like that's like the stepping stone to Red Bull.
yeah,
They're mainly predominated around young drivers. If you look at, they had Carlos when he was quite young, Pierre when he was
Danny
quite young, had Alex, Danny Rick. Yeah, I think Christian Horner said, just going back to like Alex at AlphaTauri, Christian Horner said at the start of the season when obviously Alex obviously doesn't have a seat and he's testing reserve for Red Bull, he was like, I'm willing to give Alex to another team if they want him. And I think they've got, obviously Red Bull have got that strong link to AlphaTauri being sister team, so it could be quite easy for Red Bull to go, if Pierre does leave at the end of the season, we can put Alex in the AlphaTauri. If he develops, when Checo's out of contract, put him back in the Red Bull, see what he can do. Alex
Yeah.
will be able to fight in 2022 to 23, because Checo's only on a 1-year contract at Red Bull.
Yeah.
So there is hope for Alex yet, even though like people are saying there is no hope, Checo's better. There is a hope for Alex that he can actually get back to that stage.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I feel like if they do get Alex back in, I want him to keep him at AlphaTauri so he can get experience and not literally just bunk him up straight away and just like throw him in the deep end. I do feel like they need to keep him there for like 1 or like even like 2 to 3 years so he can get that experience. So
Yeah.
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 and that will allow him to push as hard as he can, not necessarily
Yeah.
far, like just so then when he gets to Red Bull, he'll like be able to push even harder.
Mm-hmm.
I think as well with like Red Bull and Alex Albon, and that like Red Bull aren't really like too bothered as long as you can like perform, because they don't want their second driver to be the world champion. They want someone who can compete with Max, get the points, and like get them up there. Like
Yeah.
Yeah, just going
As long
back to
as you-
Portimao, just quick. Melanie might be upset with me about this one. Williams and George
Oh, here we go again.
had a shocker. George had a really good qualifying, being, however,
I'll just shut up.
being,
But to
was-
back George up, he did say on the radio, on I think it was a Germany broadcast, that he was having like the car was undrivable basically. So
yeah, because he had a
I
really
think
good
they were like
qualifying.
struggling. Yeah, I think there was wind as
qualified.
well. They were like both Latifi and George were moaning about the wind and how it was like bad
The wind was
doing something to the
ridiculous.
car. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I think like with the whole wind situation, you're in when they're in Bahrain, there's not really like that much wind because it's like in the desert. And then
Yeah.
still
like,
windy during
obviously-
qualified. No, during like the practices.
Yeah,
before.
it was
Oh,
quite, 'cause
yeah.
they had sandstorms,
Mhm.
didn't they? I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, they had a
In
sandstorm.
testing,
Yeah.
Testing, that's
the
what I meant.
second evening of testing.
I think with that, like obviously like when you move to different tracks, you learn about the car a lot more. So like they've obviously found out like wind can be an issue for their car, so that's somewhere they'll be looking to improve on for the next race and so on.
Yeah.
I feel like with the Williams, it's a bit hit and miss. Like some tracks it can do really well, and then
Yeah.
sometimes like George and Latifi do find it undrivable. I think it's sometimes it just depends where they are. Like sometimes like they are quite good.
I feel like
and
that's
I
for all the
think
teams though,
Portimao
because
is-
there's like tracks that favour Mercedes and tracks that favour Red
Oh
Bull.
yeah,
It's like,
definitely.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
there are
Portugal's just a hard track, really.
Yeah, I think it is a bit of a difficult because I think like when they go to the Red Bull ring, I think that'll obviously much more will be a Red Bull track, like Red Bull
Yeah.
Ferrari, like they always do good there. So I think it just like obviously with Williams, it was just a bit of a
Bit of a shake up.
Yeah.
I think last year we saw quite a few drivers struggle at Portugal.
Mhm.
I think McLaren struggled quite a lot at Portugal last year. I think Racing Point Lance struggled, obviously recovering from his crash with Lando. I can't really recall how Sergio did at Portugal last year. Honestly, off the top of my head, I don't know. But quite a lot of teams struggle with the whole roller coaster feeling to the track and going up and down, especially the blind corner when you literally what Martin was saying, when you obviously sit like this on the track and you're looking up straight ahead of you, you can't see the track, you can see the sky. That's it. So I think drivers do find Portugal quite a challenge, and when like obviously the commentators are saying, oh yeah, all the drivers love Portugal, and it's like, don't lie, not all of them do.
Yeah.
Don't lie.
Not if you're from Williams, Red Bull, or Aston Martin.
I think we could talk about Aston Martin because I'm not particularly impressed so far.
No, they're just not up there. I mean,
It's up to its massive like spectacle of
Yeah.
like James Bond people. You don't look very James Bond to me.
they're
Why?
very
Like,
James Bond at the bottom of the grid, Duck.
I'm not being funny, but James Bond could drive that car quicker than both of them too.
I think
Don't
Seb
get
did okay
Sebastian
this
Vettel. Oh
weekend.
no, you just did
Yeah.
Sebastian Vettel wrong.
I think
I love Vettel.
qualifying for Seb was quite good, weren't it? Because he got into
Yeah,
Q3 and everything.
Q3.
Lance really didn't do well. Like he wasn't really up there the whole weekend. I can't even remember where Seb came.
They finished 13th and 14th, and
Yeah.
I think Seb finished 13th and Lance was 14th.
Yeah,
It was.
because I think
Go on.
like between the Aston Martins, they didn't really do good. I think it was like Alpine and McLaren were sort of like up there this weekend with like performance.
Go on, Amelia, kick us off with the tyres and your thoughts. No, Checo about like 50 plus laps on medium tyres.
Oh yes. I thought we was like just gonna be like what tire we thought was the best for that weekend. Yeah, no, actually. Checo really pushing with what 50 plus laps on the medium tires. Like that's really good to see.
53, I think. 53 laps overall on one set of tyres.
And I just thought, I was thinking to my dad, I went to my dad, I was like, is he going to pit or is he going to go the full race on mediums? Because imagine if he went the full race on mediums and like no puncture whatsoever. I just think,
Yeah.
down, like for managing that's like those tyres. Because if like with any tyres in general, if you push too hard, which as a driver you're bound to do on any track, if you want to get a certain position and you push into like find your opponent, yeah, that's the best word to use, then you can like the tires will just start to wear and wear. But Checo got quite lucky. He got like a Mexican look, clearly.
So did Lance. Lance did 43 laps on softs.
I can't believe he did that on softs.
That was
as
crazy.
well.
I kept looking at that thinking, he's going to have to pit. Like, there's no way they're going to keep him out for 66 laps on soft. So when he pit, it was like a sigh of relief. I was like, okay, it's fine.
Breathe. Okay, breathe now.
I swear Lewis did something similar last season, because there was that meme going around about him having like something like interslicks because of like the tyre wear.
Yeah. I think nothing to talk about with the tyres, just quick. At the end, was it the last 2 laps, Verstappen and Bottas both pitting, so technically on 3-stop strategies for fastest lap. That's just like, to me, that was really confusing because I was watching it and then they were like, oh yeah, Bottas is pitting. And I was like, eh? I was like, what? I was like, why is he pitting?
So I was like, why is he going into the pits? And I was like, oh, he'll be doing it for fastest lap.
Linked it to the fact that he said he was losing power because previous to him pitting.
I'm losing power. It's broken.
Oh my God, don't.
I'm losing power. It's going.
Okay, keep going. Safety car. Keep going for now.
I can't. It's broken.
Sorry.
You tears right now on the podcast.
Previous to him coming in for that fastest lap on that pit, he had said he was losing power. So I was like, if he retires now with 2 laps left, I shouldn't find this funny, but it kind of is. Like, I will end up having a little chuckle to myself thinking, oh my God. Because then I was kind of happy in the sense I knew that Checo would get a podium. So I was like, in that sense, I was like, I don't wish for any driver to have a DNF because it's what they do as a career, but I was like,
please Checo.
Manifesting this. But then, so I was actually just like, has he actually just like, they've just gone, you've lost power, just pit. And then he come back out and they were like, yeah, he's going for fastest lap. And then it was almost as if Max just went, well, anything you can do, I can do 10 times better.
Yeah.
Who may concern? Fuck you.
Yeah. Like, because Bono had obviously said that Valtteri and Max had both pitted tyres to run a fastest lap to get that extra point. And I think Lewis was like, is it too late? And I think Bono was like, well, we can try it, but then obviously he didn't.
Yeah, Lewis was like, can we do the same? He was so excited. He was like, should we do the same? Like, what's going on?
He gets so excited. That's why I love Lewis.
I love Lewis so much.
I know, he's just great. I think we were talking earlier about like the Mercedes lineup and if he does retire. I was having this discussion with one of my friends and I was like, I don't think so. If he was to retire at the end of this season, which I don't think he will, but if he was, I don't think he'd leave F1 entirely. I think he'd go into the board and he'd help with racial injustice and getting more people of colour into the sport.
Yeah.
Bring women through and more people of colour in teams.
I mean, he's having a heart attack.
Like a little Nico Rosberg. Oh my God, imagine those two walking around on the paddock together like, stop it.
Or he'd do commentary. He'd do like what Nico was doing all weekend. He'd do that kind of like, he'd do that analysis. And if he did that with Nico, I would have a heart attack. I honestly slow down.
I think Daniel would just like, if Daniel ever retires, I feel like he would go into commentary. He'd be like,
the new Ted.
Yeah.
He'd be like Ted, but
Ted in Daniel's notebook.
Could you imagine it?
I'd need it. Oh. I feel like, I don't know, I feel like he'd sort of do a Jensen Button like Daniel would, like go to the commentary and do it all. Because I think
they all would, I feel like they'd all want to do that.
Yeah.
Nico Rosberg is Lewis's fanboy. All weekend, every time they asked him a question about Max, he ruled it back to Lewis.
Somehow.
I was like, Nico, like, hear me out. I know you were friends with him in your karting years, but like, you need to talk about the other drivers, not just Lewis. He was like a married couple. Like, he just wouldn't stop talking about him.
Yeah,
amazing.
I think as well, like when Lewis retires, like it's not really an if anymore. It's like a when. Like he will at some point. I feel like him, Rosberg and Button will focus on Extreme E and like everything that's going on over there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's like 3 big names in like Extreme.
And Carlos Sainz.
Yeah,
Carlos Sainz as well.
Because Jenson Button did a British GT
Yes.
team, and he was in it last year, and I watched him race it. I think it was at Donington. No, he did it at Silverstone, and he was so good. Like, because he was in the car, and it's like I like to see like these sort of like people coming back into like the British teams that aren't so big, getting almost like more people into it, because like, obviously everyone's going to know who Jenson Button is. Like everyone knows who he is. So,
I
like,
love him.
Bring
so
it,
much.
yeah. So bringing him into like British GT and stuff like that, I think it's quite good for like the British team, like championships and everything. So I'd like to see Lewis or even like Lando, like maybe if he retires, like in the future. But I think it'd be able to
imagine George and Lando walking through the paddock interviewing everyone. I would just die.
You just go, on the floor, dead, passed out.
A couple of years time, like maybe like in a 10 years time, but
yeah.
George, Alex. Yeah, George. I forgot Alex. Charles as well.
That interview made me so sad. The one that they did in the build up to Portugal, and it was George and Lando, and I was like, they did this at a certain point last season where they did George, Alex, and Lando, and I was like, where's Alex?
Alex should be sat in the middle.
Someone did like a meme, and it was of when George and Lando were walking together, and Alex like has a little ghost in the middle.
Yeah, there's like memes all over Twitter. It's quite funny.
Did you see the TikTok?
Twitter is the best.
I think it was like the TikTok of driver's license. It was like driver's license, and then it was like,
I saw that.
I was like heartbroke.
Yeah. They're like, I didn't die, guys.
Yeah.
Every time I think of like George and Alex together, it takes me back to I think it was like a video they did, and it was like, it's going like, George.
During lockdown when they were
the live stream.
George, leave me alone.
George! What is... Mate, honestly, what is this? George, you are so bad!
I so want like the Twitch quartet to get back together. Like it's been way too long.
Oh my god!
I love
so good.
So good. Like they did so.
The truck simulator stream though, honestly, I watched that like weekly.
My favourite thing is that go left, and he just knocks over the truck.
I'll put on the 4 lights just for safety.
I'll put on the 4 lights.
And the windscreen wipers.
Oh no. Go left! Left! Oh my god! He's over! Oh my god! A huge one! Get the horn on! Horn!
I'm putting the 4 lights just for safety.
Maybe the windscreen wipers as well.
I miss lockdown.
That was that lockdown where the drivers were streaming Twitch. Even like Pierre and Romain were streaming on Twitch. And that was good as well. That was for F1 fans that was stuck with no racing for so long, not knowing when it was back. That was so good. It was just like
when like all like the esports was going on. Like they were all
virtual races on F1.
Yeah, George did so well in so many other ways. Like I was like, what?
I think another thing we could talk about from Portimao, and I know Amelia will want to get into a conversation about this, is Lando's sky high confidence right now. It's just
oh my god, the overtake though. I know obviously like he gave the position back to Perez, but that overtake was beautiful.
Oh, it was nice. It was nice.
So smooth, and I just thought, wow.
Yeah, but it was an awesome overtake.
Okay, so
you can definitely see that his confidence is 100% going up. His confidence was very high last year as well. You know, he had a few races where he didn't do as best as he wanted to do, but you know, it happens with any driver, and he's still obviously new. Like it's his 3rd year in F1, so he's still progressing.
Okay, so this is his confidence right now. I'm talking about sky high confidence. So Lando Norris points after 3 races in all seasons that he's been in F1. So his rookie season, 2019, after 3 races, he had 8 points. 2020, after 3 races, he had 26. After 3 races in 2021, he has 37.
And that is like what we like to see, ladies.
That is
we
what
do.
we love
that.
Especially for a young British driver, that is what you love to see.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he is aiming now. He's like third.
Yeah, he's third, I think.
Yeah.
It's like Lewis, Max, and then Lando. And it's like
then Bottas, and then then Charles, then Bottas.
Charles. We love that.
yeah.
Mind me getting really excited.
So I love Charles. He's one of my favourite drivers. But he beats himself up too much about bad results. It was after the quali he gets out qualified by Carlos, and obviously I think everyone kind of took that as a bit of a shock because Charles out qualified Carlos at Bahrain and Imola.
Yeah.
And I think go on.
It's like with Charles, he will forever, like, obviously most of the time, like, someone would be happy, but he always beats himself up, like, constantly.
Always.
And I feel like he needs to, like, give himself some credit, because he always beats himself up because he's not winning. Like, that's what he wants. Like, he wants to win, and if he's not, like, he's constantly beating himself up. And I'm like,
and he wants
fine, sweetie.
He wants to win. He wants his wins because we saw in 2019 won the Belgian Grand Prix, and then he goes and wins at Monza.
Yeah.
And you could see how, like, happy he was about their results, and you could see, like, the pure joy. Especially 2019 Monza is one of my like serotonin races. The amount of times I go back to that race purely for the ending of that race when the whole Tifosi comes on the track and they're all cheering on Charles. I was sobbing.
Absolute scenes.
And especially because
it's like such a good image to see.
It's so good. And it's also for Charles as well, because he's still a young driver. Let's be real here. He's still a young driver with loads of potential to do whatever he can in the sport, and people are dibbing him as when Lewis retires, maybe he can challenge Max for the championship. That's a lot of pressure on a young driver, but I think Charles can handle it. But his one problem is that he can't beat himself up too much. When he did his interview after qualifying, he was like, oh, I just wasn't good enough. I just wasn't a good enough driver. And I was like, everyone gets out qualified by their teammates. Like, it happens. It's a natural thing that happens in the sport. It's so unpredictable. So just, like, it's fine. But yeah,
like look at Danny Rick. Like, Lando's been outperforming him in qualifying, and Danny's been in the sport almost 10 years, maybe even more.
I think he's still getting used to the McLaren.
He's been in 11 years.
Hello there.
Yeah,
he's still struggling.
I just see Dano's face is popped.
Whenever I go, he follows me, I swear.
Oh my god, I didn't even notice it. Oh dear.
Alonso did really well, making his Alonso and Daniel, some great overtakes, making their way up. I think Alpine had the good pace and everything. So yeah, I think, to be honest, my driver of the day would have been Alonso or Daniel, because they made their way up through it.
Mine would have been Daniel.
I don't know a single person who voted Perez, which I was really confused about.
Yeah, I was really confused about that one.
Because I voted Daniel. I know a lot of people who voted Daniel.
I did. I voted Daniel.
Oh yeah, I seen that thing from Mazepin.
There she is. I think, just going back to what Ellie said about Alonso having a really good race, we know, obviously, Alonso's going to have to, it could be quite a struggling season for him, because he's come back into sport after having so long of, well, not so long, like 2 years, of not racing. And a lot, I think, has changed in the sport in them 2 years, from when he was racing for McLaren when he retired to obviously now when he's back at the team he won his 2 championships with. But I think, what was it I saw after the race when F1 posted all the communications through radio? He overtakes Daniel, and then he's like, right, who's next? He's that determined to prove that he is the driver that people want him to be, that he's not satisfied until he's across that finish line. Because as a fan, you probably think, oh, okay, he's quite satisfied now. He's in the points. Like, maybe that's all he's going to take from this. But he's going, who's next? I'm just going to keep pushing for these points. And then when he finished the race, and then when he finished, I had so much respect for what he was saying on the radio. He was like, thank you guys for such an amazing race. Like, the car felt really good today. The pace was great. And he also as well was asking where Esteban finished. And he was like, did he get good points of the team? Did he get a good result? So I think he's a driver that if you're a F1 fan, you can respect what he's done. And I think F1 fans are going to respect him now that he's back in the sport and he's still trying to be that determined driver. I'm quite happy that he's back in the sport because I do love watching Fernando race.
So many people hated Fernando coming back because people were never like a big fan of him. I love Fernando.
I love him. I think he's great.
Fernando was like my dad's favourite before Lewis came into the sport. And then when Lewis came into sport, obviously with him being a British driver, my dad was more towards Lewis. And, you know, I've grown up being a Lewis supporter. Like I am literally a secret Lewis fangirl and I'm not going to hide it.
I saw a tweet and it was basically like a meme reaction picture. And it was like a phone about yay big. And it was just all of this text, like one long paragraph. And the caption was, what F1 driver are you defending like this with this massive paragraph? I will ask you guys, what driver are you defending like that? With just one massive long paragraph about yay big of like, you know, why are you defending him?
Oh, yeah. Pierre would be up there with me, but Lewis just straight away because
Pierre and Lewis are the two for me.
Yeah, it could be George
Can
and
I throw
Lewis.
Seb into the mix? I'm defending Seb.
Or Alex.
Seb.
Alex, I would with Alex.
They'd be like my top three that I probably defend. Lewis, Pierre, and Seb.
Lewis,
also, I think I'd defend Daniel.
What about yes? Oh my god, I forgot about Daniel. Daniel, Seb, Lewis, George. I've got 4.
This
Twitter can be quite
brutal. Is the word
brutal with some things that happens, but the teams, their official accounts, engage with the fans so much. The amount of times that the Williams official account has replied to me and liked my tweets is, I don't know if you've had it, Melanie.
Mercedes Twitter account is so funny. So it's same on Instagram, but
the Mercedes and like Ferrari and McLaren and stuff, they have this thing. I've noticed it mostly, I will admit, with Aston Martin, right? They have this kind of persona online of, if you're a stan on Twitter, you have a certain language that you speak, which is just spamming the keyboard most of the time in all caps.
Oh my god, I've just seen on Twitter the fact that George Russell slightly lapped Mazepin in the final lap with the Williams.
Yeah, in the final like
mention that.
it's like people have like seen it. Like,
Yeah, we didn't
George,
mention
like,
that
overtakes him,
that George actually lapped Mazepin.
as he should
Oh my
in a
god,
Williams.
goodness.
But I actually have a tweet saved in my phone that is Aston Martin when they were Racing Point, when Sergio won at Sakir. Sorry, Melanie. It's just there.
Touchy subject.
Very touchy subject. I'm like
It's them
crying.
in all caps, spamming the keyboard, and then just at the end putting "what the." And I have that
God, I
on
was
my
on
phone
Twitter that time. Thank God.
It's so good. I honestly, you can't beat how much the admins of the accounts interact with their fans, and you even find that some of the admins, the AlphaTauri ones, Williams, Red Bull as well, they actually, like, if a fan says like, "Oh, hi admin, have a good day," they normally reply saying like, "Hi, like, thanks, you too." But it's not just like a automated response. They do actually put the names of the people. They do take the time to kind of show the appreciation and things like that, which I kind of rate them highly for, because you know, that's always quite, I think, for fans, that's like, wow, okay, that's happened. So I think engagement
about Twitter though
is great.
It's like there's two sides to Twitter. There's like the nice side and there's a bad side.
Yeah.
It gets too much hate for what it is, because I know like the Twitter I'm on, it's like nice because if I see someone being negative, I just block them because I can't be done with it.
You just mute it. You can just like, you can like mute this is, anyone has Twitter and finds a shitty conversation they don't want involved in, mute it. The 3 dots at the top, and you can mute conversation and mute tweets from the person. The amount of times I've done that on people because like they're just horrible on the app is like,
I've not done it on me.
I keep
I've done it on you. I have not done it to you, Melanie. But it can be a good app, and I think Twitter is the best app that drivers and teams can use to interact with
Yeah,
if
definitely.
you engage with them 100%. I think Instagram's too much of like just
Just
too
post.
yeah.
I don't even
I think McLaren started to repost fans stories at the weekend and that now as well.
Yeah, I saw that.
McLaren's
McLaren's quite
engagement.
good on TikTok, aren't they?
Yeah.
Racing drivers and stuff are like, obviously, because I go to a lot of like the British Championships and stuff. They're like all the motorbike riders, like all the British champions. They're ever so lovely. They're literally like, you'd meet someone and I'm like, you are my idol, and they'll just talk to you as if you were like someone normal. I'm just like,
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make it my thing. Gracie, you probably know Aidan Moffat. I'm gonna make it my absolute mission to meet that man. Honestly, him and Ashton, and I need to meet him.
I'm hoping to go Brands Hatch for British GT and Formula 3.
Oh, could you imagine?
I'd love to see a Formula 2 race, or
British
even Formula
GT,
3.
I met Jack Mitchell. I met Jack Mitchell last year because I went to Donington. He's nice. He's lovely. Nearly met Jamie Caroline, but that's a funny story. I was a bit drunk. It wasn't my finest moment, but honestly,
I've got a question for you guys about this week now coming up, because it's the Spanish Grand Prix. Spain's in iffy kind of track, but what are your top 3 gonna be for your podium places for Spain?
We're doing this on Instagram.
No,
but I don't know if
actual championship.
Oh.
So how do you think it's going to differ after Spain?
I think it's still going to be Hamilton.
Yeah, I think Mercedes
it's just going to stay the same.
Yeah.
You don't think Bottas is going to go up a position if he does get a good result?
Did anyone just hear me say George instead of Lewis? That was a bit.
Yeah.
Because there isn't that much of a gap. There isn't that much of a gap from. Well, actually, the gap from Lando to Charles to Bottas isn't that big. So depending on what happens in Spain, could decide the shift from going up or down. I think that if Bottas has a good result, he will definitely go up to third in the championship.
Yeah, because Bottas is 4th at the moment.
Yeah. I can't wait for F3.
Charles is 1 point ahead of Bottas, I think. To Ellie's happiness.
Oh,
okay.
McLaren.
I'm still good.
Wait, where's McLaren in the construction? Yeah, that's mad.
Because it's going to be the first race of F3, isn't it? And no one's there's not been an F3 race. There's Caden Frederick that I can't wait to see, because I watched him in British Formula 3. He was in that. He's fast. I can't wait to see him. I've watched you race so many times.
I've got
Same with Logan Sargent.
Going back to constructors and Aston Martin and how we're not particularly impressed. At the start of the season, people were kind of saying, like, the Racing Point were McLaren's one kind of big challenge last year. And I think going into this year, everyone was like, the Aston Martin is going to be the big challenge for McLaren this year. But the 3 races that we've had, they haven't particularly proven that. Who do you, for McLaren's sake, because McLaren are trying to go for that P3 in the constructors, I don't think they've got the strength enough to go for P2. Definitely not. They're a bit off that, like actually completely off that. But if you're McLaren, what team should you be mostly kind of afraid of for this season?
Ferrari.
I'd say Ferrari. I don't think AlphaTauri are at the challenge that they should be, because obviously after Bahrain, I think everyone was like, AlphaTauri are going to be pushing to the top of the midfield. I don't think they have that strength to push the top of the midfield.
No.
I think Pierre is a good driver, so he can get points. Yuki still has room for improvement. Like we mentioned before we filmed this, he moved through the ranks really quickly. 1 year in F3, 1 year in F2. first year in F1, people expected quite a lot from him. You can't, because he's a young driver. He's like 20, 21, I think. I don't know.
He's 20.
20.
20.
He's
So I
20.
don't think AlphaTauri can particularly push to the top of the midfield. I think they definitely can try and push with Alpine and Aston Martin. I think that will kind of be the teams they push with. Alpine, I think if they keep working on their car and their pace, they can definitely fight. Ferrari, I think, for me, have one of the strongest lineups on the grid. And I also think that their car has made immense improvements from 2020. And we've already seen that in race pace, controlling the car, how it's manufactured and been made. And like, I just think they've got a stronger driver in Carlos because he's younger than Seb. And that's to the dismay of Seb because I love Seb so much. But he's out of his prime and getting good results and things like that. So I think they've done a good choice with going with two young drivers. So I think Ferrari will be McLaren's one kind of big threat this year. I think if they've got to look out for anyone, it's going to be them.